The city of New York buzzed with its usual energy as Jack Thompson stepped out of a black town car, his polished leather shoes clicking against the pavement outside a glitzy charity gala. At 38, Jack had built an empire from scratch, turning a small real estate startup into one of the most successful companies in the city. His name was synonymous with success: luxury penthouses, high-profile deals, and a lifestyle most people only dreamed of. But behind the tailored suits and million-dollar smiles lay a man burdened by loneliness. Jack's life revolved around work, leaving little room for personal connections. Friends came and went, but no one stayed long enough to truly know him. Family? That was a sore subject. His father, a stern and unyielding man, had pushed Jack to succeed at any cost, often at the expense of their relationship. And then there was Emily, Jack's younger sister, who had vanished without a trace over a decade ago after a bitter argument with their father. Her disappearance left a void in Jack's life that he'd never been able to fill. As the gala wrapped up, Jack climbed into his sleek silver luxury sedan, eager to escape the endless chatter of networking and fundraising. The quiet hum of the engine provided a rare moment of peace as he drove through the dimly lit streets of Manhattan. It was late, and the city seemed quieter than usual, save for the occasional taxi or distant siren. When he pulled into the parking garage near his penthouse, something caught his eye: a faint movement inside his car. Frowning, Jack approached cautiously, his heart pounding. Peering through the tinted windows, he saw her. A young girl, no older than 12 or 13, curled up on the back seat, fast asleep. Her clothes were tattered, her face smudged with dirt, but her presence in his pristine vehicle sent a jolt of irritation through him. "Hey!" Jack called sharply, tapping on the window. "What are you doing in my car?" The girl stirred, blinking groggily as she sat up. She looked frightened, her wide eyes darting around like a cornered animal. "I'm sorry," she stammered, scrambling to gather a small bundle of belongings. "I didn't mean to." Before she could finish, Jack froze. Around her neck hung a delicate gold necklace, a pendant shaped like a tiny bird in flight. He knew that necklace. It wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was a family heirloom, a gift from his grandmother that had gone missing years ago. His breath hitched as memories flooded back. The last time he'd seen it was when Emily wore it before she disappeared. Where did you get that?" Jack asked, his voice softer now, tinged with disbelief. The girl clutched the necklace protectively, her expression wary. "It was my mom's," she whispered. "She gave it to me before she died." Jack stared at her, his mind racing. Could the scruffy, scared girl somehow be connected to Emily? Was it possible that the answers to questions he'd buried deep inside were sitting right in front of him? For a moment, he didn't know what to say. All he could do was stand there, staring at the necklace, and the girl wearing it, as the weight of the moment settled over him. Finally, Jack took a deep breath, forcing himself to soften his tone. "Listen," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Jack. What's yours?" "Lila," the girl replied hesitantly, still clutching her things tightly. "Well, Lila," Jack continued, "how about we go somewhere warm, and you can tell me more about that necklace? I think it might belong to my family." Lila hesitated, clearly torn between fear and curiosity. But after a long pause, she nodded slowly. "Okay," she murmured. "But I didn't steal it, I swear." "I believe you," Jack said, surprising even himself with how sincere he sounded. As he led her to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was about to change everything. For both of them. Jack drove Lila to a nearby diner, the kind of place that stayed open late and catered to night owls and early risers alike. The warm glow of neon lights spilled onto the sidewalk as they entered, the smell of coffee and pancakes filling the air. Jack chose a quiet booth in the corner, sliding into the seat across from Lila. She looked small and fragile against the cracked vinyl, her hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug of hot chocolate he'd ordered for her. "Start from the beginning," Jack said gently, his eyes flicking to the necklace still resting against her chest. "Tell me about your mom, and how she got that." Lila hesitated, her gaze dropping to the table. For a moment, Jack thought she might clam up entirely, but then she began speaking softly, her voice barely above a whisper. My mom. She was amazing. She worked really hard to take care of me, even though we didn't have much. She used to tell me stories about when she was little, about this big house she lived in with her family. But she never talked about them much after they kicked her out. Kicked her out, Jack repeated, his stomach tightening at the familiar story. His father had always been harsh, especially toward Emily, who rebelled against his rigid expectations. Could it be true? Had Emily been cast out all those years ago? Lila nodded, picking at the edge of her napkin. Yeah, she said they didn't approve of some guy she liked, he wasn't rich or something. After that, she left and never went back. She met my dad later, but he wasn't around long. Then it was just us. Her voice wavered slightly, and she paused to sip her drink. She gave me this necklace before she got sick. Said it was special, that it came from her grandma. Jack's heart sank as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. The necklace was his grandmother's, a gift passed down through generations. It had disappeared shortly before Emily vanished, and Jack had assumed their father sold it during one of his financial crises. But now, sitting here with Lila, another possibility emerged. Emily had taken it with her when she left. What happened to your mom? Jack asked carefully, sensing the pain behind Lila's guarded expression. She got sick last year, Lila replied, her voice breaking. We didn't have money for doctors, so... She trailed off, blinking back tears. I've been on my own ever since. Jack felt a pang of guilt mixed with admiration for the girl's resilience. Despite everything she'd endured, she carried herself with quiet strength. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Listen, Lila, I think you might be related to me. That necklace, it belonged to my grandmother. My sister, Emily, wore it before she disappeared over 10 years ago. Lila's eyes widened in shock. Your sister? Yes, Jack confirmed, watching her closely. Do you know anything else about your mom's family? Anything that could help me figure this out? Lila thought for a moment, then shook her head. Not really. She didn't like talking about them. Just once, she mentioned living in a big house with a man who yelled a lot. She said he scared her. Jack clenched his jaw, anger bubbling beneath the surface. He knew exactly who she meant. His father, whose temper had driven Emily away. That sounds like my dad, he admitted bitterly. If your mom was Emily, that would make you my niece. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and uncertain. Lila stared at him, her expression a mix of disbelief and hope. You're saying I'm not alone? She whispered, almost too quietly for him to hear. Jack reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand over hers. I don't know for sure yet, but I want to find out. And no matter what, I'm not going to leave you out there on the streets. You deserve better than that. Lila blinked back tears, nodding slowly. Okay, she murmured. Thank you. Over the next few days, Jack delved deeper into his family's past, searching for any evidence that could confirm Lila's connection to Emily. He sifted through old photo albums stored in the attic of his penthouse, flipping through faded pictures of happier times. There were plenty of shots of Emily as a teenager, her bright smile, her rebellious streak, but none recent enough to compare with Lila. Still, certain features stood out. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her jawline. They were eerily similar. He also discovered a box of letters tucked away in the corner of the attic. Most were addressed to him from Emily during her teenage years, filled with complaints about their father and dreams of escaping their strict household. One letter stood out, written shortly before she vanished. In it, Emily hinted at being pregnant but begged Jack not to tell their father. I can't raise a baby here, she wrote. I'll figure something out, but I need you to trust me. Jack's hands trembled as he read the words, guilt washing over him. He hadn't trusted her back then. He'd dismissed her struggles as teenage drama and focused on building his career instead. Now, staring at the proof of her secret, he realized how badly he'd failed her. Determined to uncover the truth, Jack hired a private investigator to track down leads on Emily's whereabouts. Meanwhile, He continued spending time with Lila, helping her adjust to a safer environment. He arranged for her to stay at a local youth shelter temporarily, ensuring she had access to food, clean clothes, and basic necessities. Each visit revealed more about her life on the streets, the dangers she'd faced, the kindness of strangers who'd occasionally helped, and the loneliness that had defined her existence. One afternoon, while walking through Central Park with Lila, Jack noticed her staring at a group of children playing near the fountain. "Do you miss having friends?" he asked softly. Lila shrugged, trying to play it cool. "It's fine. I got used to being alone." "You shouldn't have to get used to it," Jack replied firmly. "Everyone deserves to feel like they belong. If things work out, if you really are my niece, I want you to know you'll always have a place with me." For the first time since they'd met, Lila smiled. A genuine, hopeful smile that lit up her entire face. "That sounds nice," she admitted. "But what if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not who you think I am?" Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Either way, I'm not letting you go back to the streets. You've already been through enough." As they walked back toward the shelter, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that finding Lila was more than just coincidence. Whether she turned out to be his niece or not, she represented a second chance. A chance to right the wrongs of his past and build a future rooted in love and connection. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Jack, as he worked tirelessly to uncover the truth about Lila's connection to his family. Each new discovery brought him closer to answers, but it also forced him to confront painful memories he'd buried long ago. The private investigator he hired, Mr. Carter, proved invaluable, digging up records and piecing together fragments of Emily's life after she left home. One evening, Mr. Carter called Jack with an update. "I found something," he said, his tone cautious yet hopeful. "Your sister Emily changed her name shortly after leaving New York. She went by Elena Martinez in most official documents. I traced her to California, where she lived until about 8 years ago." Jack's heart raced. "And the girl, Lila? Is there any record of her?" "She matches the timeline," Mr. Carter confirmed. "Birth certificate lists Elena Martinez as the mother, and the father is listed as unknown. There's no recent activity under either name, which suggests they may have kept moving or fallen off the grid entirely." While the information was promising, Jack knew it wasn't enough to confirm Lila's identity definitively. He needed more. A tangible link between Lila and Emily that couldn't be denied. For now, all he could do was continue building trust with Lila while waiting for further developments. Meanwhile, Jack spent more time with Lila, determined to learn everything he could about her life before their paths crossed. They visited museums, explored parks, and shared meals at cozy diners around the city. During these outings, Lila gradually opened up, sharing glimpses of her childhood and the lessons her mother had taught her. "My mom always said family was important," Lila confided one afternoon as they sat on a bench overlooking Central Park. "Even when we didn't have much, she made sure I knew I was loved. But she never talked about your dad or anyone else from her past. Just that they hurt her." Jack nodded, his jaw tightening at the mention of his father. "He wasn't an easy man to live with," he admitted. "He expected perfection from everyone, especially Emily. When she didn't meet his standards, he shut her out completely." Lila frowned, processing this information. "Do you think she stayed away because of him?" "I don't know," Jack replied honestly. "Maybe she thought we wouldn't accept her. Or maybe she just wanted to protect you." He hesitated before adding, "If she really was my sister, I wish I'd tried harder to find her. Maybe things would have been different." Lila studied him for a moment, her young eyes wise beyond her years. "You can't change the past," she said softly, "but you can make things better now." Her words struck a chord deep within Jack, reminding him why he'd embarked on this journey in the first place. Whether Lila turned out to be his niece or not, she deserved stability, love, and opportunities he could provide. With renewed determination, Jack decided to take the next step, introducing Lila to their hometown. A few weeks later, Jack drove Lila to the small suburban town where he and Emily had grown up. The house they'd lived in still stood, though it had been repainted and modernized over the years. As they pulled into the driveway, nostalgia washed over Jack, bringing back bittersweet memories of laughter-filled summers and tense family dinners. "This is it," Jack said, glancing at Lila. "Our old house. Well, technically our dad's house. We moved out when I was in college." Lila gazed up at the two-story colonial-style home, her expression thoughtful. "It's nice," she murmured. "Big. It used to feel like a prison sometimes," Jack admitted. "Especially for Emily. She hated how controlling Dad was." They walked around the property, Jack pointing out places where he and Emily used to play as kids. The treehouse in the backyard, the swing set rusted with age, the rose garden their grandmother had planted. Lila listened intently, imagining what life must have been like for Jack and his sister. Later, they visited the local library, where Jack showed Lila old yearbook photos of Emily. Seeing her aunt's face for the first time sent a shiver down Lila's spine. The resemblance was undeniable. Same sparkling eyes, same mischievous grin. "She looks so happy here," Lila remarked, tracing the photo with her finger. Jack smiled sadly. That was before everything fell apart. Before she left. As they explored the town, Jack introduced Lila to a few neighbors who still remembered Emily fondly. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who'd babysat them as children, embraced Jack warmly before turning her attention to Lila. "You look just like her," she exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. Emily was such a sweet girl, so full of dreams. By the end of the day, Lila seemed overwhelmed but reassured. "If she really was my mom," she said quietly, "then I get why she wanted me to have the necklace. She wanted me to remember her. And maybe find you someday." Jack wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "We'll figure it all out together," he promised. "No matter what happens, you're not alone anymore." Back in New York, Mr. Carter delivered the final piece of evidence Jack needed. DNA results confirming Lila's biological relationship to Emily, and therefore to Jack. Holding the report in his hands, Jack felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that Lila truly was his niece, and sorrow for the years they'd lost due to misunderstandings and pride. When he broke the news to Lila, she reacted with quiet joy, hugging him tightly. "Does this mean I'm part of your family now?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes," Jack replied, his own voice thick with tears. "You've always been part of it. You just didn't know it yet." With the truth finally uncovered, Jack and Lila began the process of healing old wounds and forging a new future together. For Jack, finding Lila wasn't just about reconnecting with his family. It was about rediscovering himself and learning to prioritize love over ambition. And for Lila, it meant finding a place where she belonged, a place she could call home. With the DNA results confirming Lila's connection to Emily, and therefore to Jack, the next step was building a relationship rooted in trust and understanding. While the biological link solidified their bond, Jack knew that earning Lila's complete trust would take time. Years of living on the streets had taught her to be cautious, even skeptical of others' intentions. Jack approached this delicate phase with patience and care, determined to show her that he wasn't just another fleeting presence in her life. The first order of business was finding Lila a stable place to live. Though she'd been staying at the youth shelter, Jack wanted something more permanent, a home where she could feel safe and supported. He offered her a room in his penthouse apartment, but Lila hesitated. "I don't want to impose," she said nervously. "You've already done so much for me." "You're not imposing," Jack assured her, his tone gentle yet firm. "You're family, and families take care of each other." After some coaxing, Lila agreed to move in temporarily while they figured out long-term arrangements. To ease her transition, Jack involved her in every decision, from choosing furniture for her room to picking out paint colors. He wanted her to feel like she had a say in shaping her new environment, a stark contrast to the uncertainty she'd faced on the streets. As Lila settled into her new surroundings, Jack introduced small routines designed to help her adjust. They ate breakfast together each morning, discussing plans for the day ahead. In the evenings, they cooked dinner side by side, experimenting with recipes and laughing over culinary mishaps. These simple rituals created a sense of normalcy that Lila hadn't experienced in years. Despite these efforts, there were moments when Lila's defenses flared up. One afternoon, while organizing her belongings, Jack stumbled upon a tattered backpack filled with mementos from her time on the streets. Crumpled receipts, scraps of paper with handwritten notes, and a few trinkets she'd collected along the way. When he asked about them, Lila snapped defensively. "Why are you going through my stuff?" she demanded, snatching the bag away. "I didn't mean to snoop," Jack replied calmly, holding up his hands in apology. "I was just trying to put things away. I'm sorry if I crossed a line." Lila softened slightly, clutching the backpack tightly. "It's all I have left of my old life," she admitted quietly. "Even if it wasn't perfect, it's still mine." Jack nodded, respecting her attachment to those memories. "Of course, you can keep whatever you need, it's your space now. But remember, you're allowed to let go of the hard parts too. This is a fresh start." His words resonated with her, though it took time for her to fully embrace the idea. Gradually, Lila began unpacking emotionally as well as physically, allowing herself to envision a future free from the struggles of her past. To further support Lila, Jack enrolled her in a local school, ensuring she received the education she deserved. At first, Lila resisted, fearing judgment from classmates who might see her as an outsider. "What if they ask about my mom? Or where I lived before?" she worried aloud during one of their evening talks. "They might," Jack acknowledged. "But you get to decide how much you share. And if anyone gives you trouble, we'll handle it together. You're stronger than you think, Lila." Encouraged by his confidence in her, Lila agreed to give school a try. On her first day, Jack accompanied her to meet the principal and teachers, making sure everyone understood her unique circumstances without singling her out. Over time, Lila found her footing, excelling in subjects like art and literature. Her creativity blossomed, and she made a few friends who admired her resilience and quick wit. Meanwhile, Jack continued working to fill the gaps in Lila's knowledge about her mother. Through conversations with old acquaintances and neighbors back in their hometown, he pieced together fragments of Emily's life after she left New York. He discovered that she'd worked multiple jobs to provide for Lila, often sacrificing her own needs to ensure her daughter's happiness. The image of Emily that emerged was one of fierce determination and unconditional love, a legacy Jack hoped to honor by caring for Lila in the same way. One evening, as they flipped through photo albums together, Lila paused at a picture of Emily as a teenager. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" she asked softly, tracing the edge of the photograph. "She'd be proud of the person you're becoming?" Jack replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And she'd be glad to know you're surrounded by people who love you, including me." Tears welled in Lila's eyes, but they were tears of gratitude rather than sadness. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she truly belonged somewhere, that she wasn't alone anymore. Jack also used this period to reflect on his own growth. Before meeting Lila, he'd been consumed by work, using success as a shield against loneliness. Now, he realized how empty that pursuit had been compared to the fulfillment he felt raising Lila. He scaled back his commitments at the office, delegating responsibilities to trusted colleagues so he could focus on being present for her. Their bond deepened with each passing week, built on shared experiences and mutual respect. Whether it was cheering her on at a school play or comforting her after a tough day, Jack proved himself to be a reliable and loving guardian. Lila, in turn, brought lightness and joy into his life, reminding him of the importance of human connection. One Saturday morning, as they strolled through Central Park arm in arm, Lila looked up at Jack with a mischievous grin. "So does this mean I get to call you Uncle Jack now?" Jack chuckled, ruffling her hair affectionately. "Only if you promise not to embarrass me in front of my friends." "Deal," Lila replied, giggling. "But only if you promise to teach me how to drive someday." "Let's stick to bikes for now," Jack joked, earning another laugh. As they walked together beneath the golden autumn leaves, Jack felt a profound sense of peace. Finding Lila hadn't just reunited him with his family. It had given him a second chance to build a life filled with purpose, love, and belonging. As Jack and Lila's bond deepened, they both began confronting the ghosts of their past, memories and regrets that had shaped their lives in profound ways. For Jack, this meant revisiting the strained relationship with his father and the guilt he carried over losing touch with Emily. For Lila, it meant grappling with the loss of her mother and the hardships she endured on the streets. Together, they navigated these emotional waters, learning to heal not just as individuals but as a family. One chilly November evening, as they sat together in the cozy living room of Jack's penthouse, Lila surprised him with a question that caught him off guard. "What was your dad like?" she asked softly, curling up on the couch with a blanket draped over her legs. Jack hesitated, staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace. He rarely spoke about his father, even after the man's passing 2 years earlier. The memories were still too raw. The arguments, the silence, the unspoken expectations that loomed over their household like storm clouds. But Lila deserved honesty, especially now that she was part of the family. "He was complicated," Jack began, choosing his words carefully. "On one hand, he wanted us to succeed, to be better than him, I think. On the other hand, he didn't know how to show love without control. If we didn't meet his standards, he shut us out completely." Lila listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. "Do you think that's why my mom left? Because she couldn't handle his rules?" Jack nodded slowly, guilt gnawing at him. "Probably. She was always the rebel in the family, the one who refused to follow the script he wrote for us. When she fell in love with someone he didn't approve of, he gave her an ultimatum. Give him up or leave. She chose to leave. And you never heard from her again?" Lila pressed, her voice tinged with sadness. "Not really," Jack admitted, his throat tightening. "I tried calling her a few times, but she never answered. After a while, I stopped trying. I convinced myself she was happier without us, that she didn't need me anymore." He sighed heavily, shaking his head. "Looking back, I realize I failed her. I should have fought harder to stay connected." Lila reached out, placing a small hand on his arm. "You can't blame yourself for everything, Uncle Jack. My mom made her own choices just like you did. Maybe it wasn't about failing. It was about surviving." Her insight struck a chord within Jack, forcing him to reevaluate his perspective. Perhaps forgiveness wasn't just something he owed to Emily and Lila, it was something he needed to extend to himself as well. The next day, Jack decided to take Lila back to their hometown once more. This time, their destination wasn't the old house, but the cemetery where his parents were buried. Standing before his mother's grave, Jack knelt down, brushing away fallen leaves. Beside him, Lila stood quietly, clutching a bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked along the way. "I wish you could have met Grandma," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "She would have loved you so much. She had this way of making everyone feel special." Lila smiled faintly, laying the flowers gently on the grave. "Maybe she knows I'm here," she whispered. "Maybe she's watching over us." They moved next to his father's headstone, where Jack paused, struggling to find the right words. "Dad," he began haltingly, "if you're listening, I hope you understand now that love isn't about control. It's about acceptance. You lost Emily because you couldn't accept her for who she was, and almost lost me too. But I won't make the same mistake with Lila. She's my second chance. Our second chance." Tears streamed down his face as he spoke, unburdening himself of the resentment he'd carried for so long. Lila wrapped her arms around him, holding him close as he cried. In that moment, they both felt lighter, as if releasing those painful memories allowed them to move forward together. Back in New York, Jack took another step toward healing by introducing Lila to his closest friends and colleagues. At first, Lila worried about fitting in among such accomplished people, but Jack reassured her. "They'll love you because I do," he told her simply, and he was right. His friends welcomed her warmly, impressed by her intelligence, humor, and resilience. Through these interactions, Lila gained confidence in herself, realizing she didn't need to hide her past to earn acceptance. One evening, during a dinner party at Jack's apartment, she shared a story about her mother's resourcefulness. One Christmas, when money was tight, Emily had crafted handmade gifts for everyone using scraps of fabric and paper. The guests laughed and applauded, touched by the tale. "You remind me so much of her," Jack said later, pulling Lila aside. "Your strength, your creativity, it's all hers. But you're also uniquely you, and that's what makes you incredible." Lila beamed, glowing under his praise. "Thanks, Uncle Jack. That means a lot." As weeks turned into months, Jack and Lila continued working through their shared trauma. They visited support groups for families affected by homelessness, connecting with others who understood their journey. Through these experiences, Lila learned that her struggles weren't a source of shame. They were part of her story, shaping her into the remarkable person she was becoming. One evening, as they strolled along the Brooklyn Bridge, Lila turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if my mom hadn't left? If she'd stayed with you guys?" "All the time," Jack replied honestly. "But I don't think she would have been happy staying. She needed freedom, to make her own choices, live her own life. And even though it hurt to lose her, I respect that." Lila nodded, gazing out at the glittering skyline. "I guess some things are worth the pain," she mused. "Like finding each other again." Jack smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Exactly. Sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful places." In that moment, surrounded by the lights of the city and the promise of tomorrow, Jack and Lila realized something profound. Facing the past wasn't about erasing it. It was about understanding it, learning from it, and using it to build a brighter future. Together, they had transformed pain into purpose, loss into love, and broken pieces into a mosaic of hope. As winter gave way to spring, Jack and Lila found themselves standing at the threshold of a new chapter. One defined not by pain or regret, but by healing, growth, and the promise of renewal. The wounds of their past hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had begun to scar over, leaving behind lessons learned and bonds strengthened. For both Jack and Lila, this period marked a turning point, a chance to let go of lingering fears and embrace the future with open hearts. One weekend, Jack suggested revisiting their childhood home in the suburbs. "It's been sitting empty for years," he explained to Lila as they packed snacks and blankets into the car. "I thought maybe we could spend some time there. Clean it up, make it feel like home again." Lila hesitated, unsure how she'd react to seeing the place where her mother grew up. Would it bring her closer to Emily? Or would it remind her of all the years they'd lost? Sensing her apprehension, Jack reassured her. "We don't have to stay long if you're not comfortable. But I think it might help to see where your mom came from, to understand her story better." When they arrived, the house looked much the same as it had during their last visit, though neglect had taken its toll. Paint peeled from the shutters, weeds choked the garden, and dust coated every surface inside. Yet beneath the decay, traces of the past remained. Faded wallpaper patterns, scuff marks on the hardwood floors where Jack and Emily used to race, and the faint scent of lavender that lingered in the air, a remnant of their grandmother's favorite perfume. "This was her room," Jack said, leading Lila upstairs to a small bedroom at the end of the hall. The space was cluttered with old furniture and boxes, but the essence of Emily still lingered. On the dresser sat a framed photo of her as a teenager, her arms wrapped around a younger Jack, both grinning ear to ear. Lila picked it up, studying her aunt's face intently. "She looks so happy here," Lila murmured, her voice tinged with awe. "Do you think she ever wanted to come back?" "Maybe," Jack replied softly. "But pride kept her away, and fear, probably. She didn't want to risk being rejected again." Lila nodded, setting the photo down gently. As they explored the rest of the house, memories surfaced like waves crashing against the shore. Jack recounted stories of family dinners, holiday celebrations, and late-night talks with Emily. Lila listened quietly, piecing together fragments of her mother's life before her own existence began. In the attic, they discovered a treasure trove of mementos. Photo albums, letters, and trinkets that painted a vivid picture of Emily's youth. Among them was a scrapbook filled with ticket stubs, pressed flowers, and notes written in Emily's looping handwriting. One page caught Lila's attention, a letter addressed to Jack, dated shortly after Emily left home. Dear Jack, I hope you're doing okay without me. I know things weren't perfect between us lately, but please don't forget how much I love you. You're my big brother, my protector. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. Until then, take care of yourself and tell Dad I'm sorry. Love always, M. Tears welled in Lila's eyes as she read the words aloud. She never stopped caring about you, she whispered, looking up at Jack. No, she didn't, Jack agreed, his voice thick with emotion. And now, thanks to you, I finally get to keep that connection alive. Back in New York, Jack and Lila worked together to restore parts of the house, transforming it into a sanctuary for weekends and holidays. They repainted walls, repaired broken fixtures, and planted new flowers in the garden where their grandmother once tended roses. Each task brought them closer, reinforcing their shared commitment to honoring Emily's memory while creating new traditions of their own. During one such outing, Lila surprised Jack with an idea. What if we turn the house into a place for kids like me? She suggested, her eyes shining with excitement. A retreat for families who've experienced homelessness. Somewhere safe and welcoming. Jack smiled, impressed by her vision. That's a wonderful idea, Lila. Let's make it happen. Over the next few months, they partnered with local organizations to renovate the property further, equipping it with resources and support systems for families in need. The project became a labor of love, uniting Jack and Lila in purpose and giving them a sense of fulfillment neither had experienced before. Amid these efforts, Jack also took steps to address his lingering guilt over losing touch with Emily. He wrote a letter to her, pouring out his heart onto paper. In it, he apologized for not fighting harder to stay connected, expressed gratitude for the gift of Lila, and promised to honor her legacy by being the best uncle and father figure he could be. When he finished, he tucked the letter into the scrapbook alongside Emily's note to him. This is our story now, he told Lila as they closed the book together. Yours, mine, and hers. And it's just beginning. By summer, the house had become a symbol of resilience and hope, not just for Jack and Lila but for everyone who crossed its threshold. Families arrived carrying heavy burdens, yet they left lighter, buoyed by the support and compassion they found within its walls. Lila thrived in her role as a mentor, sharing her experiences and offering guidance to children navigating similar challenges. Through it all, Jack marveled at the transformation in Lila and in himself. Where once he'd been consumed by ambition and loneliness, he now found joy in simple moments. Watching Lila play catch with neighborhood kids, teaching her how to bake cookies, or simply sitting together on the porch as fireflies danced in the twilight. One evening, as they stargazed in the backyard, Lila turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. Do you think Mom knew this would happen? That we'd find each other and fix everything? I like to believe she did, Jack replied, smiling softly. She always had a way of seeing the good in people, even when no one else could. Maybe she trusted that we'd find our way back to each other eventually. Lila nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. Well, I'm glad she was right. So am I, Jack whispered, wrapping an arm around her. So am I. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the night sky and the warmth of their bond, Jack and Lila realized something profound. Healing wasn't about erasing scars. It was about embracing them, learning from them, and using them to create something beautiful. Together, they had transformed pain into purpose, loss into love, and broken pieces into a mosaic of hope. By the time autumn returned, painting the countryside in hues of amber and crimson, Jack and Lila's lives had settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. The challenges they'd faced, the pain of loss, the weight of guilt, and the uncertainty of their journey, had been woven into the fabric of their relationship, strengthening its foundation rather than tearing it apart. Now, as they stood on the cusp of a brighter future, they did so not as individuals burdened by their pasts, but as partners united in purpose and love. Lila continued to thrive in school, excelling in subjects like art and literature, while making friends who admired her creativity and resilience. Her confidence grew with each passing day, bolstered by Jack's unwavering support. On weekends, She took charge of organizing activities for the families staying at the retreat house, using her experiences to guide others through their own struggles. Watching her interact with children who reminded her of her younger self filled Jack with pride and gratitude for the second chance he'd been given. For Jack, life took on a deeper meaning. He scaled back his involvement in the real estate business, delegating responsibilities to trusted colleagues so he could focus on what truly mattered: family. The retreat house became his passion project, a testament to the values Emily had instilled in him: compassion, humility, and service. Together, he and Lila hosted workshops, community events, and fundraisers aimed at supporting families affected by homelessness. Their efforts inspired others to join the cause, creating a ripple effect of kindness and generosity. One crisp October morning, as golden sunlight streamed through the windows of the retreat house, Jack gathered everyone in the backyard for an announcement. "We've come a long way since we started this project," he began, his voice warm yet steady. "But none of it would have been possible without someone very special." He turned to Lila, smiling fondly. "This place is as much hers as it is mine." Lila blushed, waving off the attention with a shy grin. "It's all of ours," she corrected, gesturing to the families gathered around them. "We built it together." The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for the girl who had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Later that afternoon, as Jack and Lila strolled through the garden, admiring the flowers they'd planted together, Lila spoke up. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we hadn't found each other?" "All the time," Jack admitted, glancing down at her. "But I also know this is exactly where we're meant to be, together." As Thanksgiving approached, Jack decided to host a family dinner at the retreat house, a celebration of gratitude and unity. Relatives flew in from across the country, eager to meet Lila and see the transformation of the old family home. For the first time in years, Jack felt a sense of belonging, not just to his blood relatives but to the extended family they'd created through their work. During the meal, Lila stood up to say a few words. "When I met Uncle Jack, I thought my life was over," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I never imagined I'd have a home, or people who cared about me, or a reason to keep going. But here we are, surrounded by love and hope. So thank you, to everyone, for being part of our story." Her speech brought tears to many eyes, including Jack's. As they raised their glasses in a toast, he realized something profound. Family wasn't defined by blood alone. It was about connection, support, and shared experiences. And in Lila, he'd found the missing piece of his heart. On Christmas Eve, as snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, Jack and Lila sat by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa and reminiscing about the year behind them. The necklace Lila wore, the one that had sparked their reunion, rested gently against her chest, a symbol of their bond and the legacy they carried forward. "What do you want for next year?" Jack asked, nudging her playfully. Lila thought for a moment, then smiled. "Just more of this. More family, more laughter, more days like today." "Deal," Jack replied, pulling her into a hug. "And remember, you're never alone. Not anymore." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the promise of tomorrow, Jack and Lila realized something profound. Healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about embracing it, learning from it, and using it to forge a brighter future. Together, they had transformed pain into purpose, loss into love, and broken pieces into a mosaic of hope. As the clock struck midnight, ushering in a new year, they stepped outside to watch the snowfall. Hand in hand, they gazed up at the stars, grateful for the journey that had brought them here, and excited for the adventures yet to come.